The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the clutter of breakfast dishes and half-opened mail that had become a familiar sight in my life. I stood at the sink, scrubbing a stubborn pot, my mind wandering to the mundane routine that had enveloped me like a thick fog. My husband, Mark, was already off to work, leaving me with the quiet hum of our suburban Portland home. I glanced at the clock, another day stretched ahead, filled with errands and chores. I had once relished the simplicity of my life as a homemaker. The rhythm of laundry cycles and grocery shopping had given me a sense of purpose. But lately, each task felt like a weight dragging me deeper into ennui. I longed for something more, an escape from this monotony that had settled over me like dust on forgotten shelves. A flyer fluttered on the counter as I wiped down the surface. It was an advertisement for a local yoga class, promising rejuvenation and self-discovery. The thought of stretching my body and mind appealed to me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Maybe this was what I needed, a chance to reconnect with myself outside the confines of motherhood and marriage. I hesitated but ultimately decided to keep the flyer. It represented a small glimmer of hope in my otherwise predictable existence. Later that afternoon, while perusing the aisles of our neighborhood grocery store for dinner ingredients, I felt an unexpected rush of warmth wash over me when I spotted Jake, my son's best friend and a family friend since he was practically a child. He stood near the produce section, examining avocados with his characteristic intensity. Jake had grown from an awkward teenager into an attractive young man. He exuded confidence and charm that drew people in effortlessly. "Hey, Allison," he called out when he noticed me standing there, lost in thought. "Jake. What are you doing here?" My voice came out lighter than I expected. "I'm just picking up some snacks for study group," he replied casually, though his eyes sparkled with mischief. I laughed softly, remembering how he used to come over for playdates with my son when they were kids. "You're still studying? You're not graduated yet?" He grinned. "Just trying to make sure I don't fall behind." As we chatted about school and life post-graduation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about him now, a depth that hadn't been there before. Our conversation flowed easily, it felt natural despite the years between us. He shared anecdotes about college life while I recounted bits from their high school days. But beneath this light-hearted exchange lay an undercurrent of something else, a connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As we parted ways in front of the checkout line, his smile lingered in my mind long after he disappeared down another aisle. The yoga class began 2 days later in a small studio tucked away on a side street filled with quaint coffee shops and artisan boutiques. The air inside was infused with lavender and soft music played in the background as we settled onto our mats among younger participants who seemed effortlessly graceful. I struggled to keep up. Each pose felt foreign to my stiff body as memories of past athleticism faded away like old photographs left out in sunlight too long. Yet there was something liberating about being surrounded by strangers who didn't know my life story or expectations placed upon me by others. After class ended, one woman approached me. Her name was Sarah, and she exuded warmth as she complimented my effort despite my obvious clumsiness during poses. We chatted about our reasons for attending. Hers centered around stress relief from work while mine remained unspoken, a search for identity beyond motherhood. As we exchanged numbers before parting ways, excitement bubbled within me at this budding friendship, a reminder that connections could still be forged even at this stage of life. Days passed quickly as Jake continued to occupy thoughts I hadn't anticipated, sharing space alongside mundane chores or family obligations. Each time our paths crossed, be it at school events or casual gatherings, I found myself drawn deeper into conversations filled with laughter and shared experiences that blurred lines between friendship and something more profound simmering beneath. Yet guilt nagged at me like an unwelcome guest. Every time thoughts strayed toward Jake's easy smile or contagious laughter reminded me of Mark waiting at home oblivious to this internal turmoil brewing within me. a conflict between loyalty and yearning for something beyond what I had known for so long. One evening after yoga class ended early due to technical difficulties, the instructor's laptop malfunctioning, we lingered outside chatting under warm streetlights illuminating our faces against dusk settling over Portland's skyline when Jake confided in me about feeling lost after graduation too. A shared vulnerability weaving threads connecting us further together than mere friendship allowed. In those moments spent together discussing dreams unfulfilled or ambitions set aside due to responsibilities imposed upon us by society's expectations, I could feel walls crumbling around both our hearts, revealing truths hidden beneath layers built over years spent conforming rather than exploring, desires buried deep within ourselves waiting patiently for acknowledgement once again. But just as intimacy began blossoming between us amidst laughter shared over coffee dates or casual strolls through parks, the weightiness returned every time memories surfaced, reminding me how precariously balanced everything remained around familial duties demanding attention elsewhere, pulling focus away from budding possibilities between two souls seeking solace together, momentarily escaping realities waiting back home where Mark remained unaware yet steadfastly present, always expecting nothing less than normalcy from his devoted wife, navigating through life's complexities silently yearning for change without ever voicing those desires aloud, risking everything built thus far against fears lingering just beneath surface tension threatening unravel. Everything if exposed too soon without careful consideration first taken into account beforehand, deciding what path lay ahead, ultimately chosen moving forward thereafter. The yoga studio smelled of lavender and sandalwood, a soothing contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. I stood awkwardly at the back of the room, watching younger women flow gracefully through poses I struggled to mimic. My body felt stiff, each stretch a reminder of the years I had neglected myself while managing family responsibilities. But there was a spark of determination within me, urging me to push through the discomfort. As the instructor guided us into downward dog, I stole glances at my fellow classmates. They were so full of life, their laughter ringing out as they shared inside jokes and stories about their week. I felt like an outsider, a relic from another era trying to fit into a world that had moved on without me. After class, I lingered by the mats, unsure whether to leave or engage with the others. That's when I noticed Sarah, a woman in her late 30s who had introduced herself during one of our first sessions. She was friendly and approachable, with an easy smile that made her seem genuine. "Hey, Allison," she called out as she rolled up her mat. "Want to grab a coffee? There's a great place just down the street." I hesitated for a moment but then nodded. "Sure, that sounds nice." We walked together through the charming streets of Portland, passing quaint shops and colorful cafes. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting warm light on everything it touched. As we settled at a small table outside the coffee shop, I felt my anxiety begin to melt away. "So what brings you to yoga?" Sarah asked between sips of her cappuccino. "I guess I'm just trying to find myself again," I admitted with a half-hearted laugh. "Life has been routine." She nodded knowingly. "I get that. Life can be so overwhelming sometimes." We shared snippets about our lives. Her struggles with balancing work and motherhood resonated deeply with me. It felt good to connect with someone who understood the weight of responsibility without judgment. As we continued talking, Sarah suggested we try partner exercises during our next class for fun. "It could be a great way to bond," she said playfully. "Sure," I replied lightly, not thinking much about it at that moment. The following week arrived quickly. Anticipation filled the air as we gathered in the studio once again. The instructor explained how partner poses would help us build trust and connection, something I desperately craved but hadn't realized until now. When it was time for partner exercises, Sarah and I paired up easily. We began with simple stretches but soon moved on to more complex poses requiring balance and support from one another. "Just lean into me," she encouraged as we attempted a challenging pose together. I leaned closer than necessary, Her warmth radiated against my skin like sunlight breaking through clouds on a gloomy day. Our eyes locked for an instant longer than usual before we both burst into laughter at our awkwardness. Then came the moment. A miscalculated move sent us tumbling onto our mats in a heap of limbs and giggles. As we regained composure amid laughter echoing off the studio walls, something shifted between us. It was electric yet fleeting. In an unexpected rush of emotion fueled by spontaneity, we kissed, softly at first, before breaking apart in surprise as if jolted awake from a dream. What just happened? Sarah breathed out in disbelief while glancing around nervously as if afraid someone might have seen us. My heart raced not just from shock but also exhilaration coursing through me like wildfire igniting dormant desires long buried beneath layers of duty and expectation. Let's just chalk it up to yoga magic, she suggested lightly, though her cheeks flushed slightly pinker than before. Right, I replied breathlessly. Part of me wanted to laugh off what had occurred while another part yearned for more, a connection beyond casual friendship lingering tantalizingly close yet frighteningly distant all at once. The rest of class passed in a blur, every stretch felt heightened by our brief encounter, a thrilling secret binding us together amidst uncertainty looming large over both our lives outside this sanctuary space where nothing else mattered but finding solace within ourselves even if only temporarily shared between two souls seeking refuge from reality, waiting outside those doors beckoning them back home once again. When class ended that day, I left feeling lighter yet burdened by unspoken possibilities lingering like shadows trailing behind me while walking home alone pondering what choices lay ahead. How could something so innocent turn into something so complicated? Returning home later that evening brought familiar sights. The cluttered living room filled with toys left scattered across floors reminding me constantly about responsibilities awaiting my attention demanding focus away from fleeting connections formed elsewhere outside these walls enclosing domestic life where Mark awaited, oblivious as always expecting nothing less than normalcy from his devoted wife navigating through life's complexities silently yearning for change without ever voicing those desires aloud risking everything built thus far against fears lingering just beneath surface tension threatening unravel everything if exposed too soon without careful consideration first taken into account beforehand deciding what path lay ahead ultimately chosen, moving forward thereafter. Days turned into weeks as yoga classes became my escape. Each session brought renewed energy along with unexpected encounters fueling my growing connection towards Jake, the best friend of my son whose presence lingered uninvited alongside memories flooding back whenever he appeared unexpectedly during family gatherings or casual meetups around town where familiarity clashed against desire creating internal conflict, residing deep within my core begging resolution before spiraling completely out control leaving nothing behind except shattered remnants left scattered across paths once traveled together long ago. One afternoon while picking up groceries at our local market, a mundane task turned exhilarating upon spotting Jake near produce aisle selecting ripe avocados. I felt drawn towards him inexplicably despite knowing how wrong it might be given circumstances surrounding our lives intertwined closely bound together by family ties weaving intricate webs complicating everything further still. "Hey there," he greeted cheerfully upon noticing me standing nearby caught off guard momentarily lost amidst thoughts swirling around inside head trying desperately regain composure before answering back casually hoping not reveal too much emotion lingering beneath surface, waiting patiently for acknowledgement once again. As I stood there, frozen in the produce aisle, Jake's cheerful demeanor pulled me from my thoughts. The weight of guilt pressed heavily on my chest, yet a strange thrill coursed through me. I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil bubbling beneath the surface. "Hey, Jake. Picking out some good ones?" He chuckled lightly, holding up an avocado. "You know it. Can't make guacamole without the right ingredients." His playful tone felt like a lifeline amidst my swirling emotions. "Right," I replied, attempting to sound casual while my heart raced. The familiarity of our banter felt both comforting and disconcerting given the context of our lives. "Are you cooking for your parents this weekend?" Yeah, they're having a small get-together, he said, placing the avocado in his basket. Just family stuff. Family stuff. The words echoed in my mind as I thought about my own family dinner looming ahead. The irony didn't escape me. Here I was, flirting with temptation while preparing for a dinner filled with obligations and expectations. I glanced around the market, a bustling space filled with laughter and chatter, and suddenly felt trapped in my own life. Jake leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. What about you? Any plans for the weekend? The question hung in the air between us like an unspoken invitation. My heart raced at the thought of spending time with him outside of our routine encounters. Just the usual, I replied, trying to sound nonchalant but failing miserably as warmth flooded my cheeks. He studied me for a moment before breaking into a grin that made my heart skip. You should come by if you're free. My parents won't mind. The offer was innocent enough, yet it sent ripples of excitement through me. Could I really step into that world? A world where I could be more than just someone's wife or mother? I'll think about it, I managed to say, though uncertainty gnawed at me. As we exchanged farewells and went our separate ways, the encounter lingered in my mind like an uninvited guest refusing to leave. That night during yoga class, I found myself distracted, my thoughts drifting back to Jake's easy laughter and inviting smile. After class ended, I lingered outside talking to Sarah, my new friend from yoga who had quickly become a confidant in this strange journey of self-discovery. Something on your mind? She asked perceptively as we walked towards our cars parked side by side. I hesitated before confessing. It's just, life feels so monotonous sometimes. She nodded knowingly. I get that. But you're taking steps to change things. Yoga is a great start. I appreciated her encouragement but couldn't shake off the feeling that something deeper was stirring within me, something that went beyond yoga classes and friendly chats. Later that evening at home, as dinner simmered on the stove and my husband flipped through channels on TV obliviously lost in his own world, guilt crept back in like an unwelcome shadow. With every laugh shared between us over mundane topics, the weather or what our son had done at school, I felt more disconnected from him than ever before. That evening turned into sleepless hours spent tossing and turning as thoughts of Jake invaded my dreams like an intoxicating whisper calling me towards something forbidden yet exhilarating. The next day at yoga class was different. Every stretch and pose felt charged with anticipation as memories of Jake played over and over in my mind like a favorite song stuck on repeat. After class ended, I couldn't help but seek him out. He was sitting on the steps outside chatting with another student. Hey, he greeted cheerfully upon seeing me approach. Hey, I replied breathlessly. There was something electric about being near him that made everything else fade away. My responsibilities as a wife and mother slipped further into obscurity whenever he was around. We chatted easily about nothing much, a light-hearted exchange, but then he turned serious for a moment as if sensing something deeper beneath our playful facade. You okay? He asked softly after noticing how quiet I'd grown suddenly. I'm just thinking, I admitted reluctantly. Vulnerability washed over me unexpectedly as honesty slipped through cracks formed by years of pretense. What's going on? His tone was gentle yet insistent. It made me want to share everything. The longing for connection beyond what life had settled into thus far. The desire for more than just routine existence dictated by roles we played so well but didn't truly fit anymore. I don't know how to explain it, I finally said after gathering courage enough to speak again while avoiding direct eye contact, fearing what might surface if we lingered too long in this space together where boundaries blurred dangerously close. Jake shifted closer, leaning slightly forward. His presence enveloped me like warmth radiating from sunlight breaking through clouds after days of rain, a feeling so comforting yet unsettling all at once. Try, he encouraged softly. Something about his eyes sparkled with understanding, a connection forming between us stronger than anything I'd experienced before, even amidst chaos surrounding us both. And then, without thinking, I leaned closer towards him, too caught up in emotions swirling around us, until our lips met, unexpectedly igniting sparks neither one of us could ignore anymore, despite knowing consequences looming ahead, waiting patiently just outside this momentary bubble, shielding us from reality, pressing down hard against shoulders laden heavy with choices made long ago. As we pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, each lost momentarily within depths swirling beneath surface, revealing glimpses, hidden desires surfacing, unwillingly demanding acknowledgement. Everything shifted irrevocably, leaving behind echoes reverberating inside hearts now intertwined within this fragile web spun intricately between two souls yearning, desperately seeking solace amid chaos, threatening stability built upon foundations crumbling slowly underneath feet, unable grasp hold tightly enough. Against tides rising high, threatening sweep away all sense normalcy once cherished dearly. Suddenly aware of time slipping away quickly, I stepped back, forcing distance, re-establishing boundaries, blurred moments earlier feeling exposed, raw, vulnerable, standing before him, unsure how navigate waters suddenly murky, filled, uncertainty lurking beneath surface, waiting patiently strike when least expected. The evening air hung thick with unspoken words as I stood outside Jake's apartment, my heart racing. We had spent the night together, wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and understanding, yet reality loomed just beyond the threshold. I could still feel the weight of my choices pressing down on me, a constant reminder that I was teetering on the edge of something dangerously exhilarating. As I walked to my car, the chill of Portland's autumn breeze brushed against my skin, awakening a sense of clarity amidst the fog of confusion. I had longed for an escape from my mundane life, but now that I had tasted this forbidden connection, it felt both intoxicating and terrifying. My mind raced through the memories of happier times with my husband, laughter over family dinners, lazy Sundays spent in pajamas, and moments that felt like they could last forever. Yet those memories were now tinged with a bittersweet hue. The phone rang just as I turned on the engine. It was Tom. My heart sank at the thought of his voice breaking through this fragile bubble I had created. "Hey, honey," he said cheerfully. "I was just thinking about dinner tonight. How about we invite Jake and his family? It'll be nice to catch up." Sure," I replied hesitantly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the sudden rush of panic coursing through me. "That sounds great." "Perfect. I'll call Jake right now," he said before hanging up. The thought of sitting across from both men sent waves of anxiety crashing over me. How could I maintain any semblance of normalcy when everything inside me felt so chaotic? The weight of guilt began to settle heavily on my chest as I drove home. Each turn felt like a step deeper into a labyrinth where every exit led back to one unavoidable truth: I was torn between two worlds. When I arrived home, Tom was already in the kitchen preparing dinner. The aroma of sautéed vegetables mingled with spices filled the air as he hummed softly to himself, a simple melody that echoed our years together. Watching him move about so effortlessly reminded me of why I had fallen in love with him in the first place, his kindness and unwavering support throughout our marriage. "Hey there. You're back early," he said with a smile as he turned to face me. "Just went for a drive," I replied lightly, forcing a smile to mask the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. He studied me for a moment before returning to his chopping board. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired," I lied, feeling an ache in my chest at how easily deception rolled off my tongue. As we prepared for dinner together, laughter filled our small kitchen, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. Each clink of silverware against plates felt like an echo of impending disaster. How could we possibly share this space while harboring such secrets? Jake arrived shortly after 6 o'clock with his usual easygoing charm. He greeted Tom warmly before turning his gaze toward me, our eyes locked for just a moment too long before he broke away with an awkward smile. The tension hung thickly in the air as we settled around the dining table adorned with mismatched plates and flickering candles. "So what have you been up to lately?" Tom asked Jake casually while serving him pasta. "Oh, work and trying to stay active," Jake replied nonchalantly but stole glances at me throughout dinner that sent shivers down my spine. I attempted to engage in light conversation about local events and upcoming festivals but found myself distracted by Jake's presence across from me. The way he leaned forward when speaking or how his laughter seemed louder than it should have been in contrast to Tom's steady calmness beside him. The evening wore on uneasily. Every shared joke felt forced, as if we were all actors playing parts in a play where no one knew their lines. At one point during dessert, homemade apple pie, I excused myself under the pretense of needing more coffee but really just needed space to breathe without feeling suffocated by expectations. In solitude within the kitchen's dim light, thoughts spiraled wildly, images flashed through my mind, Jake's laughter mingling with Tom's warmth, and suddenly it hit me like an electric shock. What was happening between us wasn't just infatuation. It was something deeper rooted in emotional connection that transcended mere attraction. "You okay?" Jake's voice broke through my reverie as he stepped quietly into the kitchen after following me discreetly from behind. "Yeah, just needed some air," I murmured while avoiding eye contact as shame washed over me for being drawn into this web again when all I wanted was clarity. He took another step closer until there was barely any space left between us, his presence enveloping me like an embrace without touch, and for an agonizing moment time stood still as unspoken words hung heavily between us, demanding acknowledgement once more. Suddenly Tom called out from the dining room asking if everything was all right. Reality crashed back down around us like a tidal wave, pulling us apart once more into our respective roles. The dutiful husband and secret lover caught in this intricate dance fraught with tension threatening to unravel at any moment. Returning to join them felt surreal. Each bite tasted bland against my racing heart while conversations swirled around topics far removed from what lay beneath our surface interactions. A fragile facade ready to crack wide open at any given moment, revealing truths none were prepared for. As dinner concluded and goodbyes were exchanged outside beneath fading twilight skies illuminated by street lamps casting soft glows over pavement below, I couldn't shake off feeling trapped within confines built around expectations imposed upon us by society itself. A prison forged out necessity rather than desire, leading only towards inevitable heartbreak lurking just beyond horizon, waiting patiently strike when least expected. Once inside again, surrounded by familiar comforts, family photos lining walls telling stories long forgotten, I knew deep down change loomed ahead, whether welcomed or not, because choices made tonight would echo far beyond this single moment, leaving lasting impressions etched into hearts forever altered by paths chosen along the way. The days leading up to the family dinner were filled with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I busied myself with mundane tasks, cleaning the house and preparing dishes I hoped would impress my husband. Yet, in the back of my mind, Jake's presence lingered like a shadow, refusing to dissipate. His laughter echoed in my thoughts, and the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke about his dreams left me both enchanted and unsettled. I tried to focus on my family, watching my son as he played video games in the living room. He was oblivious to the turmoil brewing within me. My husband, too, seemed blissfully unaware of the storm gathering just beneath the surface. He had been planning this dinner for weeks, wanting it to be a surprise for our son's birthday. "Just a little family gathering," he had said cheerfully, but it felt like a setup for something much more complicated. As I chopped vegetables in the kitchen one afternoon, my mind drifted back to Jake. The way we connected during yoga classes, the shared glances and quiet moments, had ignited something within me that I hadn't felt in years. The guilt washed over me again like a cold wave crashing onto the shore. It was relentless and suffocating. "Are you okay?" My husband's voice broke through my thoughts as he entered the kitchen. "Just thinking about tonight," I replied quickly, hoping he wouldn't notice the tremor in my voice. "Don't worry, it's going to be great." He smiled warmly, unaware of how much was at stake. As dinner approached, I found myself pacing around our home, rearranging flowers on the dining table more times than necessary. Each movement felt ritualistic, like I was preparing for some grand performance rather than merely hosting a family meal. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock, sending a jolt through me. My heart raced as I opened the door to find Jake standing there with a small gift bag in hand, a thoughtful gesture that made my stomach twist into knots. "Happy birthday," he said brightly as he stepped inside. The warmth of his smile sent shivers down my spine. "Thanks for coming," I managed to say while ushering him into our home. My husband appeared from behind me just then, greeting Jake with enthusiasm that only deepened my internal conflict. Dinner began with cheerful chatter around the table. Our son excitedly opened his gifts while Jake sat across from me, our eyes meeting intermittently amidst laughter and stories shared over steaming plates of food. Each time our gazes locked, an electric current surged between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of what lay beneath this facade of normalcy. As dessert was served, a rich chocolate cake adorned with candles, I could feel tension building within me like pressure in a sealed bottle. My husband raised his glass for a toast and began speaking about family values and togetherness while I fought against the urge to look at Jake again. "To family," he proclaimed with sincerity shining through his eyes. "To family," we echoed back mechanically as if on cue. But under that veneer of unity lay an undercurrent of discontent swirling around us all, like an unseen force threatening to unravel everything we had built together over years. Later that evening, after our son retreated upstairs with friends for gaming sessions and laughter echoing through hallways, Jake lingered in the living room while my husband went to check on dessert leftovers in the kitchen. "I didn't want to come empty-handed," Jake remarked casually as he placed his gift bag on the coffee table. Inside were 2 ceramic mugs adorned with whimsical patterns reminiscent of summer days spent lounging outdoors. "They're beautiful," I replied softly as I traced one finger along its rim absent-mindedly. Every touch ignited memories of stolen moments spent together, each one more intoxicating than before. Jake leaned forward slightly, his expression shifted from playful banter into something deeper, a yearning that mirrored what had been growing between us since we first met again months ago at that grocery store. "I need you to know, you mean something special to me," he confessed quietly. Words hung heavy between us like thick fog settling over Portland streets after dusk fell upon them unexpectedly each night without fail, unpredictable yet familiar all at once. Before I could respond or even process what had been said aloud, a sudden noise erupted from behind us. Footsteps rushing downstairs followed by laughter spilling out into open air like bubbles bursting against concrete sidewalks outside where children played joyfully until dusk enveloped them whole without warning. My heart sank as reality crashed down upon me. The moment vanished before anything could unfold beyond mere words spoken under dim lights illuminating faces caught between longing desires trapped within societal constraints imposed upon us all by invisible chains forged long ago when innocence still reigned supreme over fleeting passions chased recklessly beneath stars shining brightly above unknowing souls wandering aimlessly through life seeking solace wherever they could find it. Dinner ended uneasily. Plates cleared away left remnants behind like ghosts haunting memories etched into walls surrounding us now forevermore reminding everyone present tonight what truly mattered most. Even if those truths remained hidden beneath layers piled high upon fragile hearts yearning desperately for connection despite fears holding them back relentlessly no matter how hard they tried pushing boundaries set forth by circumstances beyond control influencing choices made along way. I excused myself shortly after dessert was finished feeling overwhelmed by emotions swirling around inside threatening escape at any moment. My breath quickened while searching desperately for clarity amidst chaos surrounding every aspect life took hold over recently leaving little room left untouched anymore without consequences looming ever closer threatening everything held dear tightly clutched within grasp. Unable let go freely without fear losing sight entirely who truly was anymore. In those moments alone retreating into quiet corners where no prying eyes could see, I contemplated choices laid bare before me, paths diverging endlessly leading towards unknown futures waiting patiently just beyond horizon beckoning softly offering promises yet unfulfilled lingering tantalizingly close enough taste but far enough away remain elusive slipping through fingers grasping. tightly onto familiarity, instead comforted only by shadows cast long ago, fading memories whispered softly. Amongst echoes past. I returned downstairs only moments later, finding both men engaged in light-hearted conversation, sharing laughs about silly childhood stories from their pasts, unaware how fragile balance hung precariously above them, suspended mid-air between worlds colliding, head-on, threatening everything built thus far, if not handled delicately, moving forward without caution taken seriously, lest disaster strike unexpectedly when least expected, catching everyone off guard, completely unprepared, facing consequences. Waiting patiently just outside, lurking nearby, ready pounce whenever opportunity arose, presenting itself suddenly, forcing decisions made swiftly, often leading lives spiraling uncontrollably downward spirals, resulting heartbreak inevitable no matter which direction chosen ultimately. Tonight would change everything. I could feel it deep down somewhere, buried beneath layers, self-doubt gnawing away, steadily consuming hope, leaving nothing behind except uncertainty, looming large, threatening engulf entire existence whole, unless decisive action taken swiftly before slipping away, completely lost forever, never found again. As I stood in the kitchen, the scent of roasted chicken wafting through the air, I could hardly focus on the task at hand. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged the table settings, each plate and fork a reminder of the delicate balance I was trying to maintain. The family dinner was just hours away, and with it came a storm of emotions that threatened to unravel everything I had carefully constructed over the past few months. Jake was due to arrive soon. The thought of him sitting across from me, mere feet away from my husband, sent a jolt of anxiety coursing through my veins. I glanced at my reflection in the kitchen window, my hair pulled back neatly, makeup perfectly applied, but beneath that facade lay a tumultuous sea of uncertainty. How could I keep my composure? How could I pretend that everything was normal when my heart raced every time Jake crossed my mind? The doorbell rang, and I nearly dropped the serving spoon in surprise. My husband, Mark, called out from the living room as he moved to answer it. "Allison, can you help me with this?" His voice cut through my thoughts like a knife. I took a deep breath and forced myself to walk into the living room. Jake stood there, his casual smile both comforting and disarming. "Hey," he said, his tone light but his eyes searching mine for something deeper. "Hi," I replied, trying not to let my nerves show. Mark introduced Jake as if he were just another family friend stopping by for dinner. But there was nothing ordinary about tonight. As we settled around the table, laughter bubbled up momentarily between bites of food and sips of wine. Mark recounted a story from his work, and for a brief moment, it felt like old times, before everything had become so complicated. Yet every laugh echoed hollowly in my ears as I caught glimpses of Jake across the table. The conversation shifted when Jake spoke up about his childhood memories, those carefree days spent playing video games with our son and running through sprinklers in summer heat. "Remember that time we tried to build that fort in your backyard?" he asked our son with a grin. "Yeah. We totally failed," our son chuckled. Jake's laughter rang out like music. It stirred something within me that had long been dormant. But as their banter continued, an unsettling feeling crept into my heart, a reminder that this warmth was built on fragile ground. After dinner, while Mark cleared the table, Jake leaned closer to me on the couch where we had settled with coffee cups in hand. "I've been thinking about what you said last week," he began cautiously. "What do you mean?" I asked nervously. "You know, about finding yourself again." His gaze held mine steadily as if searching for an answer buried deep within me. Before I could respond, Mark returned with a stack of plates and interrupted us unintentionally but effectively. "Hey. You two look cozy over there." He laughed lightly but didn't seem overly concerned. I forced a smile but felt heat creeping up my cheeks, an embarrassing reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control if we weren't careful. As we resumed our conversation about mundane topics, the weather and upcoming local events, I couldn't shake off an unsettling sense of dread looming over me like dark clouds gathering before a storm. Then came an unexpected twist. While clearing out some clutter earlier that day in preparation for guests, I had stumbled upon an old jewelry box tucked away at the back of my closet. Inside lay a necklace that had long been missing, a piece Mark had gifted me years ago during happier times when life felt simpler and love seemed effortless. Holding it now reminded me starkly of what I stood to lose if things went awry tonight. It symbolized stability amidst chaos but also served as evidence of how far apart we drifted since then. Just then, Jake caught sight of it resting on my lap where I absent-mindedly held it while lost in thought. "That's beautiful," he remarked softly. "It's sentimental," I replied carefully before slipping it back into my pocket, an unconscious gesture meant to protect both myself and what remained of our fragile family unit. As dessert was served, a rich chocolate cake baked by Mark, I felt tension simmering just beneath surface interactions. Every glance exchanged between us seemed charged with unspoken words left hanging in mid-air waiting for someone brave enough to voice them aloud first. Mark engaged both Jake and our son in light-hearted chatter while I quietly contemplated how much longer this facade could hold before everything came crashing down around us like brittle glass shattering under pressure, each shard representing pieces torn apart by choices made under duress without considering consequences fully until too late. The atmosphere thickened as laughter faded into awkward silences punctuated only by clinking utensils against plates. A stark contrast from earlier warmth shared moments prior now replaced by palpable discomfort hanging heavily over dinner conversation like dark clouds ready to unleash their fury at any given moment. Finally unable to bear it any longer, I excused myself under pretense needing fresh air outside, stepping onto porch feeling cool breeze against skin grounding me momentarily yet unable escape reality looming inside house behind closed doors where secrets threatened unravel lives irrevocably altered, forevermore if left unattended without care. But just then came another twist. Footsteps approached behind me. Turning around revealed Jake standing close enough so voices lowered barely audible above rustling leaves surrounding us, creating intimate cocoon shielding from prying eyes hidden within shadows cast by porch light, illuminating faces revealing truths long buried beneath layers built over years spent navigating familial obligations, instead pursuing passions once cherished deeply now seemingly lost forever amidst chaos swirling around us, threatening consume entirely, leaving nothing untouched. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, breaking silence between us, allowing vulnerability seep through cracks formed over time, separating two worlds colliding head-on, threatening everything built thus far unless handled delicately, moving forward without caution taken seriously lest disaster strike unexpectedly, catching everyone off guard, completely unprepared, facing consequences, waiting patiently just outside, lurking nearby, ready pounce whenever opportunity arose, presenting itself suddenly, forcing decisions made swiftly, often leading lives spiraling uncontrollably downward spirals, resulting heartbreak inevitable no matter which direction chosen ultimately. "I'm not sure," I admitted, finally breaking down walls erected high enough keep others at bay, shielding heart from pain inflicted too often throughout life journey traveled thus far. And there we stood together beneath stars shimmering brightly overhead, illuminating paths ahead, uncertain yet filled promise new beginnings waiting patiently just beyond horizon, beckoning inviting exploration despite risks involved, knowing full well choices made tonight would ripple outward, affecting lives intertwined forevermore, leaving indelible marks etched deeply within souls yearning seek solace amidst turmoil surrounding them, desperately searching answers hidden somewhere deep inside. Hearts longing connect beyond surface-level interactions forged over years spent building facades, keeping truth obscured, hidden away, locked tightly behind closed doors never meant opened, revealing darkness lurking underneath, waiting patiently just outside reach, grasping hold tightly until finally set free. The atmosphere in the dining room was thick with unspoken words as we gathered around the table. The clinking of silverware against plates seemed amplified, each sound echoing the tension swirling in the air. My husband, Mark, sat at one end, his face a mask of cheerfulness that felt forced. Jake was across from me, his presence both comforting and unsettling. I could feel the weight of our shared secrets pressing down on my chest. "Everything looks great," Mark said, gesturing to the spread of food he had prepared. He glanced at me, seeking affirmation. I nodded mechanically, trying to muster a smile while my mind raced. How could I focus on this meal when my heart was divided? Jake caught my eye briefly before looking down at his plate, a flicker of understanding passing between us. We both knew that beneath the surface of this family dinner lay a tangled web of emotions we were trying to navigate without drawing attention to ourselves. As we began to eat, small talk filled the gaps. Mark talked about work while our son, Ethan, chimed in with stories from school. I contributed half-heartedly, my thoughts drifting back to our last encounter, how Jake's laughter had felt like a balm for my weary soul. The memory lingered like a shadow in the corner of my mind. Mom? You okay? Ethan asked suddenly, his brow furrowed with concern. Yes, sweetheart, I replied too quickly. Just thinking about dinner. Mark shot me a look that suggested he sensed something was off but chose not to pursue it further. Instead, he turned his attention back to Ethan and continued discussing plans for their upcoming camping trip. The conversation ebbed and flowed around me as I fought to keep my anxiety at bay. It wasn't just about Jake being here, it was everything, the life I had built and the cracks that were beginning to show through. Did you hear about that art festival downtown? Jake asked casually after a lull in conversation. I thought it might be fun for us to check it out. I swallowed hard, feeling heat rise in my cheeks as Mark's eyes narrowed slightly at Jake's suggestion. That sounds nice, Mark replied evenly but with an edge that hinted he wasn't pleased with Jake's attempt to engage me. Yeah, Ethan chimed in enthusiastically, we should all go together. He smiled brightly at both men, unaware of the tensions surrounding us. Sure, I said quietly, forcing myself not to look directly at Jake as I spoke. The idea of being out in public together felt loaded now, every glance shared between us carried weight. As we progressed through dinner, discussions turned more personal. Mark began sharing anecdotes from his childhood while Ethan listened intently. Each story felt like an attempt by Mark to reconnect with our son and perhaps even with me by extension. Yet all I could think about was how different things were now compared to those seemingly simpler days when life revolved around family outings and school events without complications lurking beneath the surface. Then came the moment that shattered whatever fragile peace we had managed to maintain throughout dinner. A sudden power outage plunged us into darkness without warning. The lights flickered once before dying completely, leaving us shrouded in shadowy silence. What just happened? Ethan exclaimed in surprise as he fumbled for his phone for light. It's probably just a temporary outage, Mark reassured him but sounded less certain than usual. In that enveloping darkness, everything shifted. The absence of light stripped away our facades and laid bare our vulnerabilities. My heart raced as I instinctively reached out for Jake's hand under the table. It felt like an anchor amidst chaos even though it shouldn't have been happening at all. Are you okay? Jake whispered softly so only I could hear him amidst Ethan's fumbling noises above us. I don't know, I replied honestly without thinking much about it. My words hung heavy between us like an unspoken promise or a plea for clarity amidst confusion surrounding our lives right now. The darkness seemed endless as moments stretched into what felt like eternity. Conversations faded into hushed tones while uncertainty loomed over us all. What did this mean? Would anyone dare speak truths hidden away until now? I can't believe this is happening during dinner. Ethan's voice broke through again, his frustration palpable even within shadows surrounding him, but there was something else too. An underlying tension that hinted at deeper issues simmering beneath surface-level interactions throughout evenings spent together around this familiar table filled with memories both cherished yet tainted by complications threatening its very foundation built over years gone by. Suddenly there came a crash from somewhere outside, perhaps branches snapping under pressure or something more ominous lurking within night beyond walls surrounding us here. And instinctively everyone jumped slightly startled by sound reverberating through silence enveloping us further still. This is ridiculous. Mark finally broke through darkness with irritation evident in tone, a sharp edge cutting through uncertainty lingering amongst us all now heightened further still due unexpected interruption disrupting fragile balance held together moments before. But then something shifted inside me, a surge of courage ignited deep within heart-yearning break free from confines imposed upon self by choices made thus far leading up until tonight. "I think we need to talk," I blurted out impulsively, the words spilling forth unbidden despite fear gripping tightly around chest constricting breath itself. "What do you mean?" Mark asked incredulously while Jake remained silent beside me, his presence both comforting yet daunting simultaneously knowing full well implications behind statement made so boldly amidst chaos unfolding beyond control right now. "I mean really talk," I continued feeling emboldened somehow despite darkness surrounding us pressing down heavily upon shoulders bearing weight of expectations long since established within family dynamics designed to keep everything neatly packaged away hidden beneath surface level. Interactions forged over years spent building facades keeping truth obscured locked tightly behind closed doors never meant opened revealing darkness lurking underneath waiting patiently just outside reach grasping. Hold tightly until finally set free. And then, before anyone could respond or process what had just transpired, a flicker returned abruptly bringing light flooding back into room illuminating faces frozen shock mingled confusion reflecting back towards me revealing truths concealed long enough already threatening unravel everything once thought stable leaving behind nothing but fragments scattered across table where meals once shared laughter echoed freely filling space once safe now tainted forevermore. The flicker of light returned, casting a warm glow over the dining room. I blinked, momentarily blinded by the brightness, and then looked around. Jake's face was still etched with surprise, while my husband appeared more confused than ever. The tension in the air had shifted, it felt as if we were all holding our breath, waiting for someone to speak first. "Did that just happen?" Jake finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yes," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "It did." My husband's gaze darted between us, confusion morphing into concern. "What do you mean?" he asked slowly, as if trying to piece together a puzzle that had suddenly gone awry. I could see the gears turning in his mind, he was searching for an explanation that would make sense of the chaos unfolding before him. The dinner table felt like a battlefield now, each of us armed with our own emotions and unspoken truths. "Let's just talk about this," I suggested, desperate to regain some semblance of control over the situation. "We can sort it out." "Sort what out?" Jake interjected sharply, his voice rising with frustration. "You're married. This isn't something we can just brush under the rug." My husband's expression hardened at those words. "What do you mean by this?" he demanded, his tone shifting from confusion to anger. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. "I've been feeling lost," I admitted quietly. "And things have happened that shouldn't have." Jake's eyes softened slightly at my confession, but my husband's expression darkened further. "What kind of things?" he pressed. "Emotional connections," I said carefully, choosing my words with precision as if navigating a minefield. "With Jake." The silence that followed was deafening. My husband stared at me in disbelief, processing what I had just revealed while Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "What do you want from me?" my husband finally asked, his voice strained but steady. "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "I'm trying to figure everything out." Jake looked down at the table, his fingers tracing the wood grain nervously as he processed the implications of my words. The air felt thick with tension. It was as if we were teetering on the edge of an abyss and any misstep could send us spiraling into chaos. "Maybe we should take a break," Jake suggested cautiously after a moment of silence. "No," I exclaimed too quickly. Panic surged within me at the thought of losing him entirely amidst this turmoil. "I can't deal with this right now," he said softly but firmly. This isn't fair to either of us. My heart sank as realization washed over me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all three of us sitting at this table and how our lives had become intertwined in ways I never intended. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears threatening to spill over as I looked between them both, two men who represented different parts of my life and heart. Just then, another flicker caught our attention. A sudden power surge caused lights to flicker again before stabilizing fully this time. The brightness illuminated our faces harshly against the backdrop of uncertainty hanging heavy in the room like an impending storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. I think we need to be honest with ourselves, my husband said after taking a deep breath that seemed to fill him with newfound resolve. Allison, maybe it's time for you to decide what you really want. His words struck me like lightning, sharp and electrifying, forcing clarity through all the muddled emotions swirling inside me. Did I want stability or passion? Could there be room for both? Before I could respond or even process what that decision entailed fully, he continued speaking. I've sensed something was off for a while now, and maybe it's time for some changes in our lives too. His confession hung in the air like an uninvited guest lingering too long after dinner, a truth neither one of us wanted but needed desperately to confront head-on. What do you mean by changes? Jake asked cautiously, sensing an impending shift in dynamics that could alter everything we knew about our relationships moving forward. My heart raced again as dread filled every corner of my mind. What did those changes entail? Would they push us further apart or bring us closer together? I mean, perhaps we need space to breathe, my husband replied slowly but decisively. There was no mistaking that determination lacing each word spoken aloud, now resonating deeply within me too, an echo reverberating through every fiber of my being, urging action amidst indecision paralyzing all three parties involved here tonight. A sudden wave crashed against me, a realization dawning upon understanding that whatever path lay ahead would undoubtedly fracture connections already established, leaving behind uncertainty instead. Fragile threads once woven together now fraying dangerously close toward unraveling completely under pressure exerted from conflicting desires clashing relentlessly against one another without resolution in sight forthcoming anytime soon. And then, without warning, the doorbell rang loudly, echoing through silence left behind following those weighty admissions shared moments earlier, sending shockwaves rippling across our fragile environment, threatening everything built thus far, teetering precariously on edge once more. What now? Jake murmured anxiously, glancing toward front door while tension thickened, palpably filling space around us again, suffocating any lingering hope left unspoken, yet yearning desperately for resolution amid chaos unfolding right before eyes, watching helplessly as fate hung delicately balanced upon precipice, awaiting next move, determining outcome, irrevocably changing lives forevermore.